focused on Google Forms. Google Forms offers us quite a lot of different options. We can use it for surveys, we can use it to create quizzes. So in Tuesday's session, we're going to focus on the quizzes, but today we're just focused on getting started with forms, getting to grips with the different functions, changing how it looks, and also moving on to sharing a form with others. So what we'll do is we'll create some forms and we'll share them in the classroom, and we can complete some of our own, and we can also look at what other people have created. So I'm just going to stop sharing my presentation screen. But before I do, can we just make sure that you have joined the classroom? I think most of us have now, but each day there's sometimes some newer members joining our Techie Tea parties. So just in case you've never been on a call before, just make sure you've joined either the East Lothian or the Mid Lothian Google Classroom. And once you have joined that, you will have access to the instructions. None of the training for today involves any attachments to Google Classroom. So if you've not joined yet, don't worry, we'll be able to continue on with the training. And I am going to stop presenting this and share the whole screen, and we'll get going. Here we go. It's working. So Google Forms is another tool that we can use to support our learning and teaching. The focus today is very much going to be on using forms for a daily check-in or as a survey, and that's the most basic way of using a form. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a new tab, and we're going to use that shortcut that I like to use with the .new, but because it's a form, we're going to type form.new. And that will open a blank Google form up for us. As always, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. If you miss a step, just shout and I can recap it. So you'll see the Google Forms interface. If any of you have used Microsoft Forms in the past, they're very, very similar. Google Forms, I think, was the first one to come out of the two suites. So I can give my form a name. So I'm going to call it a daily check-in. Hopefully I can type today. And where it says untitled form at the top left, I can simply click here and it will pull that name from my untitled form at the bottom here, and it will copy that over. You can always edit this. So you could put the date in there as well. So I'll put in today's date and daily check-in. We can give the form a description. So I would always give a description to a form if it was something you were sharing with the wider school community, just to be specific about why you're using the form. And just worth noting that if you are using the form with parents or carers, you may need to just pop in a little message about if you are collecting their names, for example, just around the data of that. So it may be worthwhile just keeping them anonymous initially whilst you start using them, and then moving on to using them with your own students as well. If you use them with your students, you can have it so it collects their username and they never have to type in their name as well. And I'll show you how to do that as we go through the session. So this next bit here is a question. So we get different types of questions in our Google Forms. And if I click on that, it expands so I can see a bit more detail. It automatically chooses multiple choice, first of all. And if I type in name, it will use some machine learning. Hopefully it's going to do this for me. Oh, it's not doing it this morning. Don't know if it's going to do it for me. So what I could do is if I'm selecting a name, I'm not going to want it to be a multiple choice because then I'd have to type in my entire class list, which isn't appropriate. So we go to this multiple choice option here and select short answers. That's the most relevant for a name field, and it allows people to type freely in their own names. So I'll pop that there, and you'll see short answer text. And at the bottom here, we get the option to duplicate, so we can copy this and just edit the text that you're putting in as the instructions, or we can also bin the question altogether, and that just deletes it. And if you do that, we come back to, there's this menu bar on the right hand side, or it allows us to undo. It's just quite a nice big button at the bottom. So I could click on this add question, field, you need to click where you want it to go under. So if I was here and I select add question, it goes directly underneath what I have clicked on. We can always use, there's a few little grey dots here. If we click on those, we can drag that into a different place. So we can reorder quite easily with drag and drop, and we don't have to worry too much if something goes in the wrong place. Very similar to our Google Classrooms in that way, when we can drag our assignments to different places. I'm going to give a question on, let's see, what a question, your favourite food. What is your favourite food? Again, I can't type today. Oh my goodness. Favourite food. So multiple choice, and then I can type in. Now I'm going to give them multiple choice because I know what the best foods are. So I am going to type in my favourite foods and hope that they choose one of them. I'm going to put in pizza. Someone mentioned having pizza this weekend. Put that in my mind. I'm going to choose banana bread as another option. Cinnamon rolls and pasta. I can't go wrong with some pasta. At the side here, you'll see these little image signs coming up. I can also put in pictures. I can choose my own images, or I could choose ones from the internet. Now, if you think about doing a survey of, if it was a new school badge, for example, you could put in pictures to go along with that. Or if it was something to do with your school or your school building, you could do that as well. And I'm going to choose from Google image search. So that's always an option, and you'll see we can even just take a photo and put it directly into our form. You can use an image from a website. We can upload from our own Google Photos or Google Drive. I don't have any pictures of pizza in my Google Drive, so I'm going to get some pictures here. It's going to make me very hungry doing this, and you'll see it just goes in. So if I quickly do these other ones, and then once I've done this, I'll get you to start creating your own form. And as always, the pictures that appear in that Google image search are free of any copyright issues that you may come across. I've forgotten what that was, cinnamon rolls. Yeah, maths questions are often best given as images, and I'll talk about using it for maths and other types of actual lesson plans on Tuesday when we go over the self-marking quizzes. But for now, this is also quite useful just to get an idea of what students are doing. I quite often use this as a review. You can use Google Forms as an exit ticket. So if you think of an exit ticket for the end of the week with your class, that could be quite a good example and a good thing to try today. I'm just going to get some plain pasta and pop that in. So once I've got my question, and you can add multiple questions and you can make them required or not. I'm going to preview what this form looks like. So this eye at the top right of the screen here, along from send, allows us to preview the form so we can see what it will look like for the person we're sending it to. If I preview this, this is the actual form. So I can fill this in and it will record my response. So I'm going to type in my name. I can see there's not a red star next to the name. So that means I don't have to fill it in. I would always recommend doing this to test your form, because the last thing you want is someone to say, oh, it didn't work, or you look at the responses and bits are missing. So if you test it, you can make sure that it works in the exact way that you want it to. What is your favorite food? I'm going to choose pasta and then submit. And then I can come in. I'm just going to remind you all to mute your microphones. I think we've got someone unmuted. Let me just scroll. And that should be us. So yes, test your form. And then what you'll see at the top here is I have a response now. So I've got this little number 1 showing me how many responses I have received. I can now click on here and you'll see I have got my response with my name, and it's created a pie chart. Just with a multiple choice question, it will often create a pie chart with linear scales or with checkboxes. These do look quite different. So you can play about with that in this session just to see what it looks like. Now, what we can do, if you wanted to use this chart, so if you were collecting some information for your school, you can copy that chart. And if I come to a blank Google Doc, I can paste this chart into the document as well. And this will be it going in. There we go. So I can see that chart there and I can use that. So students, if they were creating forms, doing some data work as part of their numeracy, they could start using the forms and start to write about the data as well in this way. It is very clever. I would say it's a feature I've not used too much, but what I can do, if I just submit another response, just so you can see what happens to that pie chart, it will start to update. And I'll do another one. So every response I submit, it updates automatically. All the tech tips this week. I don't know how your brains are all coping, because I know my brain's just emptied with all the tips I'm trying to share and remember about all of the different bits and pieces I've done. And yeah, most important thing is to put the name as they must do that question. So what I will say, I'll go over the form settings shortly, just in case students forget to do their name and what you can do. You have to do this before you share the form with your students. To do the name box, I just created a new question. I'll delete this one for now. It will automatically show multiple choice, but if I type in name, there we go, it did change it for me this time. So I typed in name, and because it recognizes that that is a short answer text field, it has changed that for me. I didn't have to do that this time. But if your internet's a bit slower, as mine was earlier, you select that drop-down menu at the right-hand side and select short answer text, and you can make that question required. Now, if I preview the form, so previously, it didn't have a red star next to it, but now we've got this required bit highlighted at the top. I'll zoom in here. We've got this required bit at the top, and then we've got a red star next to that first question that I have made required. For the pie chart, that was in responses once I have tested it. And if I hover over the chart, we get this option at the side. Now in Google, if you see this here, that's typically your option to copy whatever that is, whether it's a link or the chart like we have here. The next thing to show you in responses is that you can create a spreadsheet from all of your Google Forms results. Now, this spreadsheet is one spreadsheet that will keep updating regardless of whether you go back and click on this or not. So if I open up this spreadsheet, I will create a new spreadsheet. And this is now linked to this Google form. So any extra response that I get in my form, and I'll show you this shortly, we've got name, banana bread, and you can see the time that they completed it, and you can see their answers. So if I quickly do name and then pizza, submit, the form has very, very quickly the spreadsheet has very quickly updated. So without you having to come back here and check every single time, you could just open up that spreadsheet. So if you have a form for your whole class, and you can see a summary of the questions, so you can go through and see the different questions that were answered. You could look at the individual forms, but for me, having this is much better. And if a student redoes their work, does it update the entry in the spreadsheet or generate a new row? It will generate a new row. So we can go into the form settings, and that's the next bit I'm going to show you. We can go into the form settings and prevent students from doing the work again. So we can have it limited to one response. And we can also have it that it will collect their username, so that you don't need to have that name field, and you can just have their usernames. So to do that, so we've got our form. I'll just come back to the question. So we've got our form, we've got our questions. We've said if they're the required or not. And that's the next bit for the that I'm going to go over is about having your edgy buzz instead of the name. So what we have at the top is we've got the form settings, and this is the settings cog that is next to send. In here, it is automatically restricted to users within your domain. So if you're mc.glow.scot, or edubuzz.org, it will have that in this area here. So where it says Edubuzz, if you're in Midlothian, that will be mc.glow.scot. By having that switched on, that will mean, oh goodness me, that will mean that students have to log in to complete the form. But what we want is to collect email addresses, and then that will collect their mc.glow.scot or their edubuzz.org usernames as they complete the form, so that you don't have to have that name field at the top. So by doing that, and I'll do the preview again to show you, we can also limit it to one response. So if you don't want students to complete this more than once, we can limit it to them only being able to do it once. Now, if you were to want that for parents or your families of the children in your school, they will have to sign in to Google to be able to limit it to one response. So that may be quite difficult to do, as not everyone has got a Google account. This one here, if we untick this, and if I switch off that collect email addresses, this now means that this form could be used for anyone and they don't have to sign in to access it. So by restricting it, they have to sign in and they can only be within your domain to complete the form. And collecting email addresses will be done automatically if they're signed in. But if we switch off the restrict, that means that form could be used on your school website, and it could be part of a blog, or you could even share it on your school's social media if you use social media in your school. Collecting email addresses will automatically collect their emails. I don't know, Monique, if a private email address could be used, such as Yahoo or AOL. It just says that it requires respondents to sign in to Google. So I would go with they will need to have a Google account for that one. So I'm going to select Save. And now if I come back to my preview, you'll see it says your email address will be recorded when you submit this form. I can switch account if it's the wrong account. I can type in my name. I can select my answer, select Submit. And now when I look back at my spreadsheet, you'll see my email address is there. So I now have a record of who it is, even without that name field. I can see it was Mackay1 at Edubuzz, likes pizza. Now, I'd like you to go and give this a go, creating a form, because it is really important that you're able to ask any questions and do the troubleshooting now, because this is very much just that basic bit in terms of creating the form, doing those settings, having it collect email addresses or restrict it. And we're going to ignore these two options here till Tuesday. So just stick to this general bit in settings, select Save, and try the form out using that preview button. If you have done this before, you could look into the theme of the form. This is where we can change the theme. We can choose an image, and we can also change the font style. So playful is quite nice for primary students, or basic, decorative. I don't really like it all that much. It's more your wedding invite style, but certainly the basic or playful are the most used in school settings. So if you do want to have a look at that, but certainly try and create a form. I will get rid of this horrendous decorative text and try and give a form. Ask all your questions in the chat and I'll recap anything that's needed. But to create that new form, it was going to form.new. In Google, you can create, as always, from your Google Drive as well. So if I had a specific folder I wanted to create the form in, I could open up that folder, select New, go to More, Google Forms. And the theme is that little paint palette at the top of the screen. So it is this one here. So there's a paint palette, the eye, and then the settings cog. And that will allow you to change the theme. Yes, you can make a change to a form once it's been shared. It will update. However, it won't update the responses you got. So you'll see in my one here that because I wasn't collecting email addresses at the start, these are all blank until I've changed that setting in the form. And now I'm seeing the email addresses. So you can continue to make changes to it. And making a namespace is just a question. and with name as a short answer text. How do you get accents for typing French? I think that is a very good question. I think you can try copying and pasting them from a source if it was your Google Doc, for example. I've not tried it, Alice. I would give it a go if I were you. See if you've got a worksheet that you can copy and paste it from. If it doesn't work, it may be worthwhile taking a screenshot of that and putting that image as your question, so you can use an image in the question as well. And schedule a post to repeat every day. No, not yet. That would be useful for these daily check-ins, but certainly you could have the form ready if it was the same question, and you could have, let me just pop in a question underneath, just how are you feeling? We could then use a linear scale to have it rate from 1 to 10, and then we could use our trusty emojis. Let me find some emojis that are useful. I'm not using Get Emoji at the moment. I'm just being quick and using the one on my computer. And you can do that, and then as I preview it, you'll see the emojis at either side in amongst the numbers, or you could just have happy or sad. You can, so is there a limit to how many answer options you can enter? For example, if I wanted kids to vote on something with lots of choices. So if you have the children voting on something with lots of choices, I'll just open up a new form. So this is probably where you'll want to use checkboxes, as that allows them to select more than one thing. So if I go vote on your favorite ... and I can choose checkboxes, and then I can add in all of my different options. If you have a list on a Google Doc, you can copy and paste that over. I don't have one to hand, so I could say blue, yellow, orange, pink, purple, and so on. And then if I preview this, this will allow me to just select as many as I want, and then I can submit them all. Never used emojis so much since you did your trainings. Yeah, I do like an emoji. I just think they're nice and colourful. I get a bit bored of just seeing text all the time. And let's see. How do you add a question after putting the name in? Great question there. So this is, pretend this is my name box. So this is my question. I've clicked in here. There's a bar down the right hand side. This is all your options to add something underneath what you've clicked on. So the first option on here is add question. So if I select add question, that goes underneath, and then I can start adding on my other questions there. Let's see if there's any questions I've missed. And duplicating an assignment for different days. So if you have an assignment in Classroom and you want to use it on another day, you can reuse a post and you can reuse that again and again. So if I had an assignment in my Techie Tea Party that I wanted to reuse, and I can perhaps look at reusing this creating forms one, I can, so that I'll go through that again. There's create, and you can reuse a post from any of your classrooms. So it doesn't have to be the one you're on. It can be one of your other classrooms as well. And then I could reuse this forms one. And then you'll be brought to that assignment screen that we've seen before now. And you'll be able to amend it or just change the date if you wanted to reuse it. And then you can schedule again, or you can assign. I would say this is a great way, certainly as a workaround for scheduling for multiple classes. If you schedule something for one class, you can go into another one, reuse the post, and just schedule it for that class as well for the same time. It is a bit fiddly because we can't just go into this for and select the classes we want to schedule it for, but certainly better than having to copy and paste each time that you want to use it in a different class and then reattach all the assignments. So if I had an attachment here, when I select reuse, it will attach the same attachments again. And if you have a yes, no question and answer is no, and you want them to say, oh, Leslie, you're getting complicated. This is good. So if you say yes or no as your options, and you want someone to go to something based on their answer. So if this is too much for you, you're welcome to switch off and just think of your lovely weekend ahead. But for those of you who maybe want to go a bit further with your forms, you're welcome to follow along with this. So I've got my question. What I need to have another section for them to go to based on their question. And that's this bottom option. Yeah, cue lots of people leaving. Yeah, just walk away from your computer for 5 minutes. Take a screen break if it is too much. But you can add a section. So that is certainly when we've had, PIPs and INCAs of previous years, where if students answered this, for example, it took them to a different question from the student sitting next to them. So what we would have here is we would have them say no to this question. And then what I can say is go to a section based on their answer. So if they say no, I can say go to section 2. Okay? Or if they say yes, they could simply submit the form. And I'm going to switch off that one. So I've got my next section. And then I'll pop in. Now, I appreciate this is maybe too much for some people. Don't worry, it took me a long time to get to the point of being able to use this part of forms because, there's only so much we can take in at once. And it's Friday, this is a lot for a Friday. And next section, next question, I'll just pop in here just so you can see what it looks like. I'll preview this just so you can see going through the form. So I've got vote on the color, yes or no. If I say yes and select next, it allows me to just submit the form. If I go and do that same form again and select no, it will now take me to that next section. What am I doing? Yeah, and then I can select option 1 and submit. So that's next level forms use, and I can always put a bit more about that in at a later date. I'm thinking of doing more techie tea parties after this block's finished, and we can look at certainly look at having some other things put into there. And what I'll do is I'll put out a survey next week just to see what people would like more training on as well. So let's see, no more questions on that one. But yeah, that is certainly something that could be quite useful. Any other questions about forms, please put them in the chat. Let's see. Share as a link stream. Yes, for sharing your form. I've not done that bit yet. Oh, so the last thing to show you is how to share your form into your Google Classroom. So we have the send button at the top right. I just zoom in because it keeps zooming me out. I have the send button. So if I select send, I can then get the link for this form. So this link here is what we can share on our Google Classroom. If I select this link, or if you're posting it to your school website, you can use the same link. Now, what I tend to do is I shorten it. And to be honest, you don't need to do that because the students are just going to click on the link, and how long it is doesn't matter. I just prefer a shorter link. I don't like them going on forever. So I can now select copy at the bottom of this dialog box here. And now I can come back into my classroom. There are options for how you share this. So if you want it to just be a post on your stream, you could put the link in as a link on your screen, on your stream. So I can select add and then link. And I just paste this link into here. And you'll see it'll show the form at the bottom there once it loads. And then I can just do test, and I can post that or schedule it as we would normally do with any of our assignments or tasks. And so yes, to do that again, so I was in my form, I went to the send button at the top right. I select this link icon. Okay, so it's kind of like links in a chain, the icon for a link there. and then I can shorten or I can simply just copy. So this time I'll just copy it as the full link. So it's copied to clipboard. I can see that little pop-up at the left at the bottom there saying it's copied to clipboard. I can come back to my classroom. I will cancel this for now. And I'm going to either share it on my stream or as an assignment. So I am going to do, please complete the form. I'll just write test because this is on the Techie Tea Party. Then I can add the form as a link and I just paste that. So I right click and I select paste and add the link into my stream post. And now I can either post that or I can assign it. Last way to do this is to post it as classwork. So as we would normally do, we can create an assignment, but rather than attaching a document from your Google Drive, you can attach a link. And this is where we can pop this link in. We may want to have a topic for check-in if you were to do something daily. And then you can give it a title, do your normal instructions, and then assign or schedule it for your students. And let's see where. So once you where will it appear after people submits it? You will be able to get the overview in the form, or if you have that spreadsheet ready. So if you've generated the spreadsheet, it will be in the form. No, you don't need to make a different copy of the form for each class. But if you want to have your students separated, so if you have your different classes and you want to be able to see what each class has done easily, you will need to make a copy of the form. And we can do that in our Google Drive or by going to the 3 dots in our form, and we can choose make a copy. Then you could rename it for each of your classes. So if you do want to be able to quickly analyze what each class has said, you could put a box in the form to say what class are you in, or you could have a different form for each class on its own. The form is kept in your Google Drive. So if I come to my Google Drive here and I search daily check-in, you can see at the top there. I mean, I don't know, this is the letter D. My drive's so full, it's going to take ages for me to find it. I can open it from my Google Drive. And I can also look at my recent folder on the left-hand side here to see all the tasks I've worked on recently. And you'll see my forms are in there as well. The forms are saved automatically. So even if you've not finished it, so for example, this untitled form here, you'll see it's saved. So as you're updating, it will save it. And yeah, so you'll be able to see everything saved to Drive in this box at the top here. And you can do your usual, move it to a specific folder or star it if you want to come back to it easily. And let's see, any other questions? Draft it into your classroom. If you want to create a draft in your classroom, at the top here, we have the option, let me just give this a name first. In the drop-down menu, you can save a draft, so you can always come back to it later. Even if you just close this, it will save it as a draft without you having to click that. So it does mean that you can come back to it, open it up, edit that assignment and keep going. So every time I change, I can close, reopen, and you'll see it's got that change there. As soon as that people submits it, you don't get their form. You don't see a completed form. You only see the results. So you only see the responses. So you wouldn't be able to see what the student put in. You wouldn't see their full form completed like you would see a Google Doc completed. You only see the form responses in the form that you've created. Yeah, and Angus is just reiterating, if you're doing it as an assignment name, gives the name the form and the assignment the same name. I was on a call yesterday, and for secondary teachers, this is quite useful, just to be able to have your class name in the assignment details. And someone commented that it was quite useful for being able to see at a glance when you get all those email notifications through from your EduBuzz. For those of you with Gmail, you'll get all your notifications through. What it means is you know exactly what class it is, what assignment they're talking about. So if someone was saying use brackets, for example, S1 English 1T2 in the brackets, and then put that as the assignment name so that you know what that notification that's coming through is about, rather than just writing or coursework, for example. You can set, let me just go into, I'm in the summary, let me go back here. So you can set a response validation. This is someone's just asked if you can have a minimum length of short answer. You can set a response validation. Again, this is next level forms use. So that's the 3 dots at the bottom of the form. And you can have text contains, and then you can have this, or you can have it the length. Character count is the next length. So you can have the minimum character count for how much they would type in there. So that's, yeah, as a comprehension text, you would probably want to save the length and have a minimum character. So if you think of if you're filling in a form online, it may have a maximum or minimum number of characters. That's how we can set that in this. Any other questions? Pop them away in the chat. I must say it's upsetting me how many close tabs to the right, how many tabs I had open there. That was far too much on the screen. And yes, thank you all. If there are no more questions, thank you. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll just stop recording.